Set to go.
All set to go. Great.
Yes.
Can this one become full size? Is it like full size with you? Or
I
is it
can
like
see I can see me and you.
okay, 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 that's great. All right. Yeah, let's do it like this then. Um, yeah, well, it's been some time. Nice to see you again.
You too.
It is, yeah, it's it's special, for me at least, I think so.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm glad we were able to make this time work. I appreciate your flexibility with all of my changes.
Yeah, 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 it's been difficult to like figure out those things sometimes when you're so far away from each other. Yeah, with the time difference. Yeah, it's really, really great. And yeah, nice to really just inspiring to follow you and Jamie as well still on what you're doing with your personal training and coaching women. Oh, sorry. Um, just get this. Anyway. But yeah, welcome to the podcast there too. KatieFiler. Great to have you
Thank you.
on again.
Yes, I'm
Um,
so happy to be back. Thank you for thinking of me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, would you would you introduce yourself for like a short time and yeah, yeah, do that.
Tell
Yeah,
tell you what I do, tell you a little bit about myself.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so as you mentioned, I am Katie. I am an online coach. I work in the functional health space, which is a little bit of, let's just say, a newer concept to the general public. It's definitely been around for 15, 20 years,
Yeah.
but the professionals who are working in this space have spent a lot of years fighting for it and spending time researching it,
Mhm.
and really just standing up to the criticism of anything new
Mm.
that comes along, right? Anything new that wants to make a splash, anything new that wants to state different, um, always has a
Yeah.
little bit of pushback. So the functional
Mm-hmm.
health space is a little bit newer to most. Um,
Mm.
but I live in Florida with my wife and my two dogs, originally from the Boston, Massachusetts area. But
Mm-hmm.
we live in Florida now, and we are absolutely loving, specifically right now as we record in October and the rest of the
Yeah.
world is getting a little chilly over here in the US.
Yeah.
The weather is just stunning, and we are,
Mm.
traveling a lot. One of the beautiful things that we do as online coaches in this space is we can travel as much as we want to and go see the world. So we've just been doing a lot of that lately. So that's kind of a
Mm.
little life update. Um, if you have been following along my specific journey,
Mhm.
I quit my full time job as a speech pathologist since
Mhm.
we last spoke. That was
Yeah.
February of 2023. So
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
been a big change. I think, yeah, that's kind of like my short little snippet of where we're at right now.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. I'm really curious because I don't think I asked you about this last time or we got to touch on it very much. But how has it been for you to grow up in Boston?
Well, I didn't grow up in the city, so
Yeah.
that's something that I'm learning now I'd like to do as an
Mm-hmm.
adult is live in a city. But I grew
Mm-hmm.
up in a very small town, about 50 minutes north of Boston on the coast. Um, Small beach town, very small community. Um, we I'm the oldest of five kids. Uh, so I don't know. That's a
Yeah.
loaded question, my friend. What was it
Mm.
like growing up? To
Yeah,
be
yeah, it
honest,
is.
it was hard. My mom got divorced when my mom and dad got divorced when I was around 4, and my mom came out. She
Mm.
identifies lesbian,
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
she got remarried when I was 6 to a woman, and that was just
Mm.
not heard of in my small town. It was
Mm.
it was hard to be a child of a LGBTQ couple
Yeah.
in my small town.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when you're in middle school, there's bullying. So I actually left the small town that I grew up in when I was 14, and I went to boarding school in Western Massachusetts. And for high school, so for 4 years, I lived on campus and I only went home like every other month and for holidays. And that was one of the best decisions that my parents and I could have made for myself. I was
Mm.
definitely going down a little dark path in middle school in my small town, and
Mm.
getting out and away from everybody was a really good decision. It sparked my interest for learning, it sparked and fueled my independence. Um, and so I think, my small town is beautiful and it's gorgeous and it's great for families to
Mm-hmm.
grow up in, but it's also one of those towns that you grow up in and you move away from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay. Wow. Yeah. I feel like that um kind of in some way resonates with the small town I come from and now have moved away from.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sure.
also
I'm sure.
also one of those places where if there's anything that becomes different or an outline some kind of way, you really feel different.
Mhm.
And you
Mhm.
need to, yeah,
It's a good
get
thing.
out of it. Uh-huh.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is for sure. But yes, it is a very loaded question, and all asking about that. But it's also very different how, and that I really appreciate also you wanting to share that, because it's very different how people look at that question and welcome it when they ask, and how deeply they think about their own journey and which impact it actually has for themselves and can have for somebody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we could spend an entire hour talking about my childhood, but I don't think this is the
Mhm.
podcast for that.
Yeah, well, I actually think it's very interesting, but yeah, it's well, if there's anything that comes around, you're welcome to share it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, yeah, because it is really a loaded question. Something that I have been thinking about is I was talking with a friend about this around food and shaping routines for oneself around food, um, in order to kind of change habits and change your own um, identity around this, or like changing the habits to um, grow into a new identity. Talking a little bit about the book Atomic Habits is very yeah, empowering, inspiring to me. But the question I have for you about that, or like the thing I've been thinking about, is what are the things that you um, kind of express or talk about when people find themselves having a difficult time around bringing their own food to a an event or a birthday or Christmas, New Year, or like just any kind of gathering. I know we talked about this the last time, but I've just been thinking a lot about, because I've just experienced it a lot myself, and I know a lot of people who kind of experience it but don't really talk about it and are not really like comfortable, which is so understandable, because I've had a lot of hard time talking about it myself, and still have, but kind of yeah, feeling comfortable and empowered in sharing how your routines are in this. Yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah, so let me just get a little clarity. Are you
Yeah.
specifically talking just about how to go about bringing your own food to events and just kind of let me dive in there?
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah, kind of that. We can start in the area.
the first thing I want to just preface this with is bringing your own food to events is that act only comes after there is a specific reason, right? We're
Hmm.
not talking about people who are picky eaters and can't have others' food, which that would be fine as well. We're also not talking about people who have severe allergies and have to bring their own food for their safety, which would
Hmm.
also be fine, right? So when we talk about someone who wants to change their body's physique or is working really hard on focusing on their health and really improving their inner health,
Hmm.
it shouldn't be a different conversation than someone who is
Hmm.
allergic to something, like deathly allergic, or someone who is extremely picky and is just bringing their own so they don't have to say no to things.
Hmm.
While I preface that we're not talking about that, you can see that those two things are exactly the same, right? When someone is focusing on, okay, so let's picture this. I'm just going to
Yeah.
set a scene
Yeah.
for you. You're
Yeah.
having a dinner
Thanks.
party and you have a friend who is allergic to dairy, who is allergic to eggs, and deathly allergic to nuts.
Mm.
You're not going to go clean your kitchen and bleach everything and take all the dairy and all the nuts, right? You're not
Mm.
going to do that. So, of
No.
course, you're going to welcome your friend to bring their own meal so that you can still be around each other, so you can still be social. Why aren't we doing that when someone decides their health is that important that they're going to bring their own food, right? So, that's where I want to start with a little bit of fire, a little bit of
Mhm.
passion,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
I feel as though the norm these days
Mm-hmm.
is people looking at you with a weird face when you decide to go the healthy route, right? When you decide to step out of that standard American diet realm and the standard American diet is fast
Yeah.
food, fried food, right? Sodas.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yes, I was
Saying
gonna
that.
say it's the standard American diet. It is sad, SAD.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So.
It is
Okay.
sad. So if you
Uh,
Google standard American diet for all of my friends out there who are not living in America, it
mm-hmm.
is fried food, it is fast food, it is easy food, it is not fresh, it is not clean. So when
Mm.
we look at someone who decides to step away from that and say, no, I'm going to treat my body better, I'm going to bring my
Yeah.
own food to a meal, um, I think that the more we are talking about it and are open
Mm-hmm.
about it, the more normal it will become, the more common it will become, the more typical it'll be so that people can stop side eyeing when we bring our
Mm-hmm.
own meals. Now, if we
Yeah.
want to get into the bodybuilding world, of course, this is a completely different story. It's a completely different narrative because as a bodybuilder
Mm.
in a prep for a show, I need to track and be aware of every single bite and drink that goes into my mouth. If I go to a not a grocery store, if I go to a restaurant and I order a chicken meal with rice on the side and vegetables, it sounds
Yeah.
pretty easy to track, right? And for the normal person who is doing a lifestyle diet, who is choosing to be healthy, that is a beautiful, perfect option. For a bodybuilder, let me tell you, oils,
Yeah.
butters, um, uh, other things like sauces, we have to
Mm-hmm.
be aware of tracking all of that because
Yeah.
all of that has calories.
Mm.
So if I go to a restaurant and I want to spend an evening with friends or family and I'm in preparation for a show, I am 100% bringing a Tupperware of food. But
Mm.
again, why is that
Yeah.
any different than someone who wants to go spend time with their friends and family who has a
Yeah.
severe nut allergy, right? And brings their own food. So
Yeah.
I think that that's my long-winded way of saying this is a small question to a much larger conversation that needs to be
Mhm.
happening
Yeah,
about
it is.
normalizing health and just normalizing letting
Yeah.
people choose their path and being okay with what everyone wants to do rather than giving a weird look to the friend who says no, they're not drinking anymore, or giving a
Mm.
weird look to the friend who's bringing their own plate of protein to add to the salad, right? Because that's another thing I could go in on. Restaurants don't serve enough protein in their meals. So
Mm.
I guess that's my long way of saying let's just have the bigger conversation about health in
Mm.
general.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you actually making it that long. Because I think that's what's giving the depth and the. I think that is what is necessary for people to actually get the perspective onto what
Mm-hmm.
is. Because often, yeah, I think at least in my experience or with what I've yeah, just looking back a few years, it's we can often come to a I don't know if I would say conclusion, but just a perception of it very fastly, and then say it's how it is. But there's just so much more to it, which you just explained, some part of it at least. Um, and something I have been thinking about too around that is when giving for example, if I bring someone brings a Tupperware food to a gathering and experiencing grandparents or any other in the family or who you are with um, looking weirdly and kind of asking, I guess, questions about why have you changed your way of eating, or do you want to lose pounds, or kind of questions that are just more like doubting or um, not doubting, doubting, or like not curious at least. I think there's a lot of, or I know, feel like there is a lot of like shame around. Um, if you bring your own more kind of healthier food, does it mean that I should feel bad for my choice of eating what I'm eating right now? And I think that I'm just really curious about like that part of it too, and I guess how um your perspectives on that, because it's just
Yeah.
something I've always been very interested in like just yeah learning
So
about or like teaching people about, because yeah
that's
go
a
on.
great question. So my perspective on that is
Mm-hmm.
it's two parts. You kind of asked a two-part question. The
Yeah.
the bringing your own Tupperware to a family gathering and getting those looks from family, grandparents specifically, you're right, that happens. Um,
Yeah.
I think that warrants a conversation. And the way I like to phrase this with my clients
Mm-hmm.
is your grandparents are seeing a change in you, which they've never seen before. And that first layer is a little scary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is a great time to talk about this because American Thanksgiving is coming up. And I'm sure there might be people who are going to be very aware of what they're eating. Uh, it
Yeah.
warrants the conversation, and I like to phrase it this way: you ask your family for their support. Whatever tone they came at you with, pretend to switch it in your head to kind of a tone of curiosity and exploration. Pretend like they're curious rather than accusatory, because I know family can come off accusatory. But in your own head, switch it around. That way you can reply to their curiosity and say, Grandma, Gramps, I'm so glad you asked. Love that you're curious about this. I have started this new health journey and I would love your support. So, do you
Yeah.
see how instead of getting defensive and instead of after them saying, Katie, why'd you bring your own Tupperware? You know I cooked your favorite blah, blah, blah. And I say, great question, Graham. I know you cooked my favorite sweet
Yeah.
potato casserole this year, and I will definitely have a bite. And I love your curiosity. I've started a new health journey, and I would really appreciate your support.
Mm.
So I love doing that because what it does is it puts them on
Yeah.
like the, whoa, like you're right. I did kind of come, like whoever you say that to,
Yeah.
they're going to notice that they came a little across, a little
Mm-hmm.
fiery. And
Yeah.
you immediately diffuse the situation by asking them for their help, right? Like you
Mm.
say, I want your support in this. Now they get responsibility to help you, and now they feel like they're part of it because if they go against you, then they're going to be like sabotaging you. And of course, your family's not going to do that. So that's one way that I like to shift it with my clients. And anybody can use that for any situation, right? If you have a goal, let's forget about food for a second. But if you have a goal and somebody in your life isn't quite really on board and they keep
Mm.
pushing the drinks at you or they keep pushing you to stay out late at night or they keep saying like skip the gym today, we're going to the beach, you shift it and you say, listen, I love spending time with you as well. I have
Mm.
this health goal and I really would love your support and your help with it.
Mm.
So that way, see how you get them kind of hooked in to like, oh, wait, they need me. Like, they need my help. Like, I've
Yeah.
got to cheer them on and support them. So I like to use that framework for almost anything when you're talking about a situation with a friend or a family member or someone in your life who's just not really in line with what you're doing. It doesn't mean cut them
Mm.
out right away. We don't have to cut these people out, but if you ask them for their help, rather than telling them how they're not helping,
Mm.
rather than pointing out, because we as humans are so quick to say, you did this and you did that and it made me, rather
Yeah,
than
blame.
take a step back,
Mm.
say, here's what I'm doing and I'd love your support. I'd love your help with it. And I promise you, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get exactly the right response. You're going to get the help, you're going to get the support. Now, I know that was a
Yeah.
long answer to the first part, but I promise I'll be a little bit shorter on your second. The part where
Thanks.
family members or friends may feel badly because they're not making the same choices,
Mm-hmm.
that's a them problem.
Yeah, 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 it is. It
That's it, right?
is.
Like that's as short as it needs to be. You cannot make anyone feel a certain way. If
Mm.
they've decided to write that narrative in their head saying, "Oh, look, Katie brought her Tupperware today. Ugh, I probably should have a salad instead because I feel bad she's gonna." No, I didn't make you feel that way. That is a
Mm.
narrative you're telling yourself, and you are allowing that energy into your own head, and that is something you need to work on. It's
Mm.
not for me to worry about. And I guess that sounds a little harsh, but you can
Yeah.
see it's me bringing my Tupperware is not making you do anything. That's a me choice.
No.
You get to make your own
Yeah.
choices.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's just such a situation where I don't know, I just really wanna I guess be able to yeah, I don't know what is it. That's making me curious on that.
It's a lot to think about. It's kind of mind blowing, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
it's it's
It
definitely a
is.
great perspective to have as an individual who's choosing their own path, right? So for somebody who is deciding to step away from the quote unquote norm or what quote unquote everybody is doing,
Mm.
um, it's really important to remember that you cannot make someone feel some way. Your
No, yeah.
actions, your actions may
Mm-hmm.
portray a certain story, but everybody around you in your circle, it's up to them to make their own stories about it. And if they're feeling
Yeah.
guilty or shameful or
Mm-hmm.
like I'm going to judge them for their food choices, they need to look inside and say, wait a second, why am I feeling guilty or shameful? Is what I'm doing not aligning with what I want?
Mm.
Because me, as Katie, bringing my Tupperware and getting weird looks at a restaurant, I can handle
Yeah.
the weird looks because it aligns with what I want as a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
So you just have to remember that what I do is aligning with what I want. And I hope for everyone around me to continue to make the choices that align with what they want. If a
Yeah.
choice is making you feel weird, or if one of my choices is making you feel weird, you got to look deep into that and figure out why.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the thing that I'm noticing that right now, just in the moment, is it's like about the story that they're carrying on, coming with that, kind of perception, or yeah, I guess it is that maybe. But that's interesting. Should I let it go a moment? Um,
Glad I could blow your mind today.
yeah, yeah, thank you. That's needed sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, I really like that you in the first thing you brought up that you looked into how we are kind of actually getting like defensive about their comments. And rather than being defensive, that we change it to a curiosity for myself. I think that's something I've maybe unconsciously been trying to do sometimes, just talking from my own experience, but also have had conversations in high schools with people who just have seemed to be very frustrated about the feeling of not being able to get into the conversation or share their thoughts on why they are choosing this or why they are having this change. So yeah, great thing. Thanks.
The the phrase that I like to go back to that one of my yoga instructors shared with us one week is
Yeah.
exploration over expectation. And
Mm.
I think that that is just a very simple, easy way to go about your day. Go at your day exploring rather than expecting.
Yeah. Exploring rather than expecting. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Need to write that down. Um,
Exploration over expectation. It's definitely my new mantra. I'm getting a tattoo. It's decided.
you do?
I don't yet, but I want to get it right here. I want exploration over expectation. I'm gonna get it.
That's cool. A really great way to remind that. Mm.
Exactly.
Yeah. There was something I was thinking about earlier, and it was about this, about inner health, when talking about, because I guess a lot of this talk in general is about like food, because I think it's something I have learned a lot about following both you and Jamie. Um, Kind of sticking to my own intuition and what I feel to be not right, but just feel like the way of how I wanted it to be. But the thing is that you mentioned something about the way that we kind of look at inner health in general in a gathering. And if you want to dive a little into the thing about how we change our perception of, or the way that we kind of not act, but handle our way around like how we look at our different inner hills and how we welcome everything is just kind of the thing that I'm thinking about right now.
So in terms of how we look at inner health, do
Mm,
we want to go a little bit into specifically stay away from physique goals? So like if we want to
mhm.
ignore outside goals, we want to look at inside goals, right? Like what are we
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at in terms of that?
Mm,
It starts